And welcome to the Smartman Show with Brian and Nate. I am Nate.
I am Brian.
Oh my God, we're back. It's episode number 10. We made it to 10 episodes, buddy.
We did. I was a little nervous because we did take a little break over the holidays. It just got a little too hectic to record. And I'm like, I hope this isn't the start of us finding ways or reasons to get out of recording.
No, that's the thing. It's we talked a little bit. I think you took a couple weeks off. I mean, I'm working full time at my full time job. I didn't have time off, but there's times where you just got to take breaks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I needed to mentally shut down.
That's the thing. We don't have a bunch of listeners waiting on every podcast, so it's all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Nobody's waiting to hang on to every stupid word we say.
And then we'll just talk about it when we get into it. No reason to tease it.
Well, let's start with a little Star Wars.
This was interesting, and this is a great. We do a bit called "Make It Make Sense." Well, let's figure this out.
Okay.
It's not really. No, it's not make it make sense. We were doing a thing where it was things that were different for like pop culture for kids now as opposed to like old man stuff. We don't necessarily have a name for that segment, but we'll just call it old man logic. All right. I've noticed recently while seeing young people talk about Star Wars, it's mostly like online comments and things. Back in the day when Star Wars came out, obviously, they were episode 4, 5, 6, right?
Yeah.
But there's just Darth Vader.
I was just say, for people who aren't like hardcore into Star Wars that might be listening, like you have to explain, George Lucas only had enough money to make certain movies, and he thought the best story was coming out of 4, 5, and 6 versus starting with 1, 2, and 3.
I think it's pop culture enough so most people are aware.
I hope so.
But in those first 3 movies, he's Darth Vader. He's the most evil villain that has ever existed on the screen, pretty much.
He's the baddest of the baddies.
And then, the prequels come out, and then we find out he is Anakin Skywalker, obviously, in those first 3 movies, but he's still Darth Vader.
Right.
And then the prequels came out, and then you discover Anakin's backstory, but he's still Darth Vader. When you're somebody my age watching it, it's Darth. Even when he's Anakin, it's still Darth Vader. Like there's that iconic. It's more iconic than the actual movie, and that's the poster for the movie, where it's the kid, whoever's playing Anakin, and then the shadow is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So even though he's Anakin, to me, he's still Darth Vader. You're just waiting to see how he's going to turn into him. But watching all these kids nowadays, because the way that they watch them now is blasphemy, first of all.
They watch 1, 2, 3.
They watch 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not the way that I say it's not the way it's intended, but I bet if George Lucas were to say how he wants people to watch it, he wants people to watch it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Right. Well, because I think for any movie, the buildup of the big bad is always as important as the big bad just existing. So I think that's definitely what his intention would have been, but we didn't get that. We got out of nowhere the Luke and all his people doing this like rebellion against this big badass dude who just choked people without ever touching them.
Yeah. And I don't know, when I see people refer to him in scenes that he is Darth Vader, and they call him Anakin, I'm like, no, you don't understand. They don't understand how terrifying he was. They have no idea because they're going at it from that sort of like, oh, he was normal, and then he fell, and he came back at the end and had a redemption. But you know what I mean?
I think I'm a little younger than you. And
you're not that young.
No, I'm not.
Younger than me.
No, but my point is, so the movies came out in the 70s. I wasn't born until 83, so I probably couldn't really grasp Star Wars, the concept, until, let's call it 89. And, it was 96 or 7 when the 1, 2, and 3 came out. So even though I was exposed to Darth Vader first, I'll be honest with you, I don't refer to Anakin as Darth Vader until he's Darth Vader. He's, when I'm watching 1, 2, and 3. I'm not arguing with your logic here.
I'm not. Well, I don't reference him and call him Vader.
I call him Annie because that's what the princess calls him. She calls him Annie.
Yeah, it was pretty one of the worst parts of that movie.
But
it's just strange. It's strange to, I mean,
does he technically become Anakin again? Like when he dies as Darth Vader, he takes his helmet off.
Yeah.
And then when Lucas remastered 4, 5, and 6 at the end of the 6th episode, when the ghosts appear, or the Force versions of the characters, Yoda's there, and they put Anakin in there.
All right, but they did that before in the old ones, but it was the older version of the after he had taken his helmet off.
Yeah, but they redid it to be young Anakin.
Yeah,
and so my question is it that wrong to call him Anakin when you look at it from that perspective?
No, it's not wrong. It's not wrong. It's a lesson in perception, and it's a lesson in experiencing that words. Why am I having such a hard time experiencing it in a different way than I did? I get it.
Well, you had 4, 5, and 6, and then you had years in between. I think at least 1 or 2.
I sat with Darth Vader for 20 years. You know?
And then the newer viewers, they were able to see 1, 2, and 3 about a year apart and then binge 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
So
most responsible parents are not, I mean, if they are responsible parents,
showed them 4, 5, and 6
4, 5,
first.
6 first. So you can have that terror and that shock that they're brother and sister. You know what I mean?
The making out part still
or that
weirds me out.
his father was the greater point to that.
No, I think it was the making out with your sister part that still weirds me out a little bit.
Yeah.
Did they ever say, I've never looked, did they ever say, was that just because it wasn't flushed out at the time, he didn't know that he was going to make them brother and sister? Or did he just say, I just decided I'm going to have brother and sister make out on camera?
I think he knew.
Okay.
He knew.
So weird.
Nobody else knew.
That was the part that weirds me out. It's just like, what?
You know, if I didn't know my sister was my sister and she was hot and I made out with her, but afterwards I'd be like, oh, I'd feel weird about it. But what are you going to do?
I wonder if it feels like you're kissing your sister if you accidentally are kissing your sister who you didn't know is your sister.
Ask Marty McFly.
Right.
You know?
There's so many movies in which this is actually a thing, but I've never had a sister I didn't know to go make out with and find out if it was a thing. But I'm curious now.
I was trying to think of like, is there another example of like pop culture just like changing it's almost like changing the narrative, calling him Anakin rather than calling him Darth Vader.
Well, you know what it is you are, so with this, the way the kids are looking at it, you are now seeing why the bad guy is the bad guy, how he got there. So you have a little empathy for Darth Vader, where we didn't get that. When we first watched it, Darth Vader was just a bad guy. We didn't know why Darth Vader was Darth Vader. We didn't know what made him cross over. We didn't have any idea about any of that, right? So now these kids have empathy. And I would say now the other thing that's on path with that is something you hate and didn't finish watching. But if you'd watched the whole series, Johnny Lawrence in The Karate Kid, understanding, because the whole series is understanding why he ended up the way he did. He was a bully and an alcoholic, but in the end, you find out that it's such a gray area to be the bad guy or the good guy in somebody's life, that Johnny actually wasn't this bad guy that he was envisioned as by Daniel-san in the movies. And Daniel-san was kind of a dick when you see it from Johnny's point of view. It's interesting, but you're seeing it from the other side, and I think these kids are seeing Anakin with Vader versus just that Vader that you got right away. I mean, you didn't get.
That's another interesting thing because, like, honestly, it'd be fun to talk to people that have watched that Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
I'm not interested in watching it, but it would be interesting to talk to people that have watched that before the Karate Kid movies.
Oh, yeah.
If there's any, you know what I mean?
My niece has probably never seen the Karate Kid movies, but she loves Cobra Kai. She's never seen it because it started, I think the first season started a little more serious, and then it got a little more oriented towards a younger generation. It focused on the students more than it did on Daniel-san and Johnny and their pettiness between each other. So, there's a whole generation of people, I'm sure, who've watched Cobra Kai and never saw the Karate Kid.
Weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing, but I do believe that is the same situation that you're seeing with this Anakin versus Vader thing. Is the younger people that started getting into Star Wars, they were able to see this evolution, and they're doing it for a lot of movies. Is it Maleficent? Am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Aren't you seeing why she became
the
evil witch? There's every movie. Oh, the Wicked Witch of the West in the new
Wicked. Yeah.
Wicked.
That was a book before. I'd actually watched that movie, and I'm not a fan of the movie.
No, but the book I heard is everybody loves the book. But
the book is fantastic.
But I mean, it is a situation again where aren't you kind of seeing why she becomes the Wicked Witch of the West?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that's interesting. There are a lot more books and movies and things like that dedicated to finding out why people do what they do, why I'm trying to think. There's another one that is escaping me right now. But I mean, there's probably more empathy. I would think there's more empathy now. Yeah. That might has something to do with it.
Well, and they got to see Anakin as a little kid first, too. That's the other thing. So you get this adorable little blonde-haired kid who is kind of a wisecracking kid and, races those, I can't remember the name of the racers that they would race in the canyons. But when you're a little kid and you're seeing that, like, Anakin is so cool. You're not getting the shock of Vader yet. You're like a little kid who's like, wants to be Anakin. He's driving these spaceships and racing people for, spare parts and money and all this stuff. Like, you're getting this whole different experience with Anakin. So it's like, I want to be Anakin. And then you find out he's the bad guy.
The worst people in history.
Yeah.
If you found out their origin story, if you found, let's just say for the sake of argument that we found out that fucking Hitler was just mercilessly abused, which he probably was. You know what I mean? Mercilessly abused or anything. Like, would it give you any sense of okay, maybe I don't hate him.
I don't know.
No. You know what I mean?
Because I think it's real life versus movie. Like in a movie, I can watch an Anakin Skywalker and be like, oh, he's pretty cool. And also, honestly, I kind of like him as the bad guy too. I'm like, Vader's a badass. If I had to choose to be a character for Star Wars, I'm picking Vader. I know that's horrible to say, but I would be Vader.
We talked about in the last episode, top movies of 2007. I had mentioned There Will Be Blood.
Yeah.
And just how depressing that was. I can't like that movie, man, because that's a supervillain,
right,
being created through the whole movie. That's about as real life in a movie as you can get, I want to say. And that was one where I'm just like, don't care about that guy.
Well, and that's the thing, dude. Like, I don't think there's any way you can make, like, movies, you can take a bad guy and go, okay, let's look at why this bad guy became a bad guy. And then you're like, oh, that's terrible. But also, it's a movie. It's for entertainment. When you take any person like a Ted Bundy or a Hitler or any other horrible human being, I don't care how much abuse they took. I do not feel any sort of empathy towards them.
Neither do I.
Because just because they experienced it doesn't mean they had to go and do what they did.
No, I agree. I'm just throwing it out there for argument's sake. Just saying, again, in 200 years, minds will be completely changed at some level on some things.
Then I would say in 200 years, if anybody found a way to make Hitler an empathy story, I would say that all people in 200 years are a-holes.
I know, that's probably true. That's probably true.
You want to shift gears here?
Yeah.
I got that video. I can pull it up.
Stop talking about awful people and their origin stories. I don't care about your origin story. You're still Darth Vader.
You're terrible.
You're still Darth Vader. You sent me this video, which was interesting, and I don't know how long ago it was. I think it was just a few weeks ago in the National Football League.
Yeah,
where Myles Garrett, is that Myles Garrett?
Myles Garrett from the Cleveland Browns,
defensive player, and he's shown on the field with Roger
Rosengarten,
who was an offensive tackle. I think he's a rookie.
Yeah, he's a
rookie offensive tackle for the Ravens.
And the Ravens, I mean, they're a good team, man.
They're a good team.
Right? That's a team you want to be on.
Cleveland sucks. Myles Garrett is the standout player, really, for that team.
Yeah.
But this is a mic'd up video.
Come on, when nobody does. I get that jersey after. Hey, you in the league, y'all winning games, y'all looking great. There's never nobody. I got you. You got me? Yeah.
So if you missed the beginning of that, they do jersey swaps post games in the NFL quite a bit, where a player from an opposing team respects another player. Hey, let's do a jersey swap, right? So he essentially said, hey, I know I'm a nobody, but you want to do a jersey swap. And then Myles Garrett responded with, hey, you're in the NFL, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not a nobody. You're playing in the NFL. And it's like...
And he said, I got you. So he's going to swap with him.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
But I think the point of it is that it's not just the NFL. It's every day where there's people walking around saying, I know I'm a nobody, and you hear it all the time from different people. And it doesn't matter what profession you're in. It doesn't matter what...
I'm looking something up
It doesn't matter what profession. It doesn't matter. There are people that just feel like they're pieces of shit walking around all the time, you know?
Well, and the reason I sent that video to you was, I'm sitting here thinking, man, how can a guy call himself a nobody when he has not only gone into the pros, but he's off the practice squad. He's on the field. He's playing. But even getting on the practice squad in the NFL is not an easy task to do. There's only a certain amount of people that can get there. So I couldn't figure out how anybody can say, hey, I know I'm a nobody, but would you be interested in doing a swap? And I'm so glad that Myles responded the way he did and built him up and saying, look, bro, you're in the NFL. I just look, dude, of all college football players, this is all conferences, everything. 1.6% of college players make it to the pro. That's a small number. It's so tiny. So to be there and still have that mindset blows my mind. Because there's no way this dude has that mindset all the way. Because if you have the mindset of, I know I'm a nobody, it's likely you didn't make it that far.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's not necessarily true. I mean, there's all sorts of people that get to a high level of their profession with low self-esteem.
I guess.
You don't need to have high self-esteem to be a good football player. I would say the opposite. I would say that's not something you just say so flippantly that you don't believe it.
Huh.
And just say it so off the cuff. Like, why would you say that? You know what I mean? But again, you see people in everyday life in all walks of life, and you go into the grocery store, inevitably, you're going to run into somebody who you can tell just doesn't think very highly of themselves. And they might as well be saying, I know I'm a nobody. And I've actually heard people say things like that.
Right.
Hey, I know.
I mean, it's self-deprecating. I do that quite a bit. I do that quite frequently about, when somebody says you did a good job on something, the first thing I say is, I could have done way better. Instead of just saying thank you.
I'm the king of self-deprecating.
Yeah.
Because I just feel like a dipshit a lot of times because I can't form words sometimes, or can't form thoughts, or
the two won't coexist at the same time.
The two don't coexist at the same time. And there was I can't remember which sales woman that worked here some years ago. She had said, why do you put yourself down all the time? And back then, especially, I just kind of went, I'm just making jokes. I'm just having fun.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
was that a lie you were telling yourself to feel better about it?
No, it's not a lie. No, I do think a lot of that stuff's funny. But if you do it all the time, first of all, you probably believe it, and that's why you say it.
Right.
Second of all, the more you say it, the more you do believe it.
Yeah.
So, realizing that self-deprecation is actually me just saying terrible things about myself. I still do it to an extent. It's hard not to.
Yeah.
Well,
my hope is in seeing this story, the Rosengarten guy, I hope he realizes, dude, you're a big deal. You're in the freaking pros. But I love the response of Myles Garrett. I truly love that. I love that and they're in a football game, man. They're in a competition right now. You know what I mean? They're in the middle of battle. And he could have just said, you're right, you are nobody, bitch, and then walked away. But instead, he took that moment to take this young man aside and build him up and say, dude, you're in the NFL. You're not a nobody. That is powerful, and that shows respect on a level that I wish everybody could get on.
Yeah, because I think, again, he said it so flippantly, and he said it so self-deprecatingly that,
head
for
hanging.
me,
his head was hanging when he said it, dude. He had his head down.
Right. It literally just takes sometimes somebody to say, what are you talking about, dude? You know, it's like in Ted Lasso, where he's just like, I'm sorry, I can't hear people that don't believe in themselves.
You got to build
the same thing. You got to just taking the time. He didn't need to, like you said, he didn't need to.
Right.
But the fact that he just took the time and said, what are you talking about, man? You know, you're here, you're doing it.
And the thing is, and I think I've talked a little bit about this before with you, maybe off the air. Sometimes you just need to be built up, and sometimes you need to build somebody up, like when they're just having a downtime. One of the ones that I've just been watching that I thought was so cool, I've talked about my struggle with weight, and it's not my favorite thing to talk about. I am super weird about it. I got myself mentally to a place to lose a bunch of weight at one point, and then I put it all back on. And I still kick myself for that. But the one person I've been watching lately is Jelly Roll. This dude has been losing weight like crazy. And I realize it's not because he's doing anything like hardcore, like he's working out and stuff, and he's eating right, which is great. But he has such a cool group of people around him. I heard he started walking around the stadiums that he was going to be playing. And he said on day 1, he walked that by himself. By day 2, the entire crew started joining him and walking the stadium with him. And I was like, holy crap. If we all had people like that was building us up, and it's
like
working.
Forrest Gump.
Dude,
just followed Forrest Gump.
Yeah, they were like, dude, we want to walk this with you. We want to be here for you. I was like, damn, that's so cool. But when you see that happening in real time, like this Myles Garrett situation with the Jelly Roll thing I just brought up, the difference that little bit of building somebody up makes is so important for the goal, for the end goal, for where everybody wants to be mentally, and that's accepting of yourself and what you can achieve. It's so cool to see if you put the right people around you or the right people come into your life by happenstance, that it could be a life-changing moment. I really hope for this Rosengarten dude that was a life-changing moment where he's like, you know what? He's right. I busted my ass. I'm in the NFL. I'm playing against Myles Garrett. He knocked me on my ass a few minutes ago.
I think the fact that, I think that being such a young player, having him say that to you was impactful, and I think that it going viral, probably was pretty impactful too.
Yeah, that probably made him go, "Wow, I should reevaluate how I talk about myself."
Yeah, I really have to think about how I talk about myself.
Yeah,
because you take that with you, man. As much as people don't want to say it, much as people don't want to say it, they're just words. Words do matter.
Oh yeah,
and especially if you're saying them to yourself over and over and over and over again.
You buy your own bullshit, dude.
If you say those things to yourself and about yourself enough and often enough, then it becomes the default. That becomes the default mindset.
Yep.
When something bad happens or you do something dumb or whatever, you're like, oh, I'm fucking stupid. I'm just the worst piece of
yes, sir.
And I've gotten so much better about catching it.
I am a strong and capable man.
I haven't got that far yet, but I do go look in the mirror, and it sounds stupid to some people. There are some people that, I do look in the mirror, and I say, "You are not an idiot. You are not stupid. You are not a piece of shit. You are a strong, capable man." And actually, because it makes me laugh, I do the Stuart Smalley thing.
Oh, I'm strong enough. I'm kind enough. And doggone it, people like me. Or love me.
And I do that because it makes me laugh, and I like to laugh.
It's hard to accept yourself. I think this was a good reminder for me that the grass is always greener on the other side. So, I don't consider myself to be much of a success in the world of radio. I'm in a small market. I have a small market radio show. I'm okay with it, and I'm accepting of it. But, I never went to the bigs, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Now, seeing that there's a guy who's in the bigs of football, but he's not confident about that. It's like, I look there and I go, oh, how can you think that way? But at the same time, I don't know. I'm not living his life, but I just hope that this was a positive impact for him in a way that it will lift him up and give him a better self-image. And I do need to be better about that as a person. That's one thing I know I need to work on, is somewhere between my 20s and my 40s, I changed. I used to love myself too much in my 20s. I was overly confident, overly arrogant about every aspect of my life.
Is that part of like the issues that you have now, you think, because things are just harder and you're realizing it's not all in my 20s and it's not all...
Yeah. Well, in my 20s, I didn't give a shit about anything or anyone. I think that was the problem. That was a sense of, I don't know what the right word is to use here, but it wasn't good. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't think I was a good person for living that way, but I did enjoy that I had more confidence about anything I did. I thought I was doing great.
I was definitely, you were talking about, you don't think you're that much of a success in radio and,
right.
the realizations now. Mine is similar. What did I do 4 years ago? Left radio to go start this thing that I'm doing now, and it's been hit or miss, and it's tough to pip a podcast out. You know what I mean? But when you put all your effort into it and you don't necessarily get the results that you're looking for, it affects your mentality, it affects your psyche.
Yep.
But retraining my brain to not say terrible things about myself has helped to get out of that.
Do you remind yourself how big you are in some other countries?
No.
You
Sometimes
should.
I do. Of course I do.
Legitimately, Smitty has pointed out and showed me some statistics that show like podcasts he's dropped in other countries, like some of them explode.
Well, not exploded. I don't want to say exploded.
Okay.
Like 4 downloads in Singapore. I mean, it could be the same person. It's the same person.
You've had some of your Irish ones go a little further than 4 downloads.
But what you were saying about being young and confident, it's so much easier to be confident when you don't have any like grasp of knowledge or consequences or any of that stuff.
Right.
Because I don't want to say I was confident in my 20s. I was definitely not confident in my 20s. I really don't even know a time that I was confident. Probably into my 30s.
I think my confidence though was more narcissism. Truthfully, I think it was. I just didn't think my shit stunk. No matter what I did, nobody was gonna change my mind. I was right, you were wrong. And I just think as I got older, I realized what a dipshit I was. And maybe I overcorrected too much, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Like, instead of going from a narcissist who understands that other people matter and how they feel matters and how I treat people matters, I went to this place of where I went from one extreme to the other now. And I'm just like, oh, I'm just a nuisance on everybody.
Well, I'll tell you what, we would not be friends if you were the same person that you were when I met you.
You caught the tail end of it, that's for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
If you had not grown over the years, I would not be friends with you.
Well, and I would hope everybody would change between their 20s and 40s, but I do believe in my 20s, I don't know what made me the way I was. I don't know why I acted the way I did, but I do think there's a large difference between that version of me and the version of me now, whether that's through trial and error, learning and learning some of my faults and understanding it and, life experience in itself that's changed me. I do think it probably overcorrected me in that I am not nearly as confident about anything I do. I asked 10 people, do you think this is funny? Do you think was this worth doing? Where I never really, in the past, I'm like, this is funny. I don't give a shit when anybody says this is funny.
Yeah.
I have to ask for way too many opinions about everything now before I feel confident enough to do whatever I'm doing. It's weird. And I don't.
No, I have the same thing. I have the same stuff.
I just don't know. I don't know if it's just you grow up and you learn and then maybe you just stop trying at certain things in your life.
Well, you talk about the confidence where I had confidence in radio and I had confidence going into this podcast thing.
Yeah.
By the tail end of radio, I was pretty confident about my abilities and what I could bring to the table and going into this podcast stuff. But I second guess everything now. Yeah. Everything I do, I second guess. And it sucks, especially if if I'm working on stuff for me, because I'm the only person that does it. I don't have anybody working for me. I don't have anybody working with me.
Right.
It's hard to do and bounce ideas to nobody. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's your vision. It's not a shared vision between multiple people trying to achieve one goal. It's your vision trying to achieve your goal. It does become a different scenario. It's not a co-op anymore. So, but I have to say, watching you from afar while you were doing that, I thought it was pretty damn cool and pretty amazing, the stuff you learned to do on your own and trained yourself to do on your own. I love it.
That's the thing, too. But that stuff gives me confidence because of all of the dick punches that I've taken over, I'm sorry for the term. I mean, but
that's a good term.
As far as for all of that, I've also know that I have learned a lot and gotten better at every aspect of doing this stuff, from the audio to the video to editing to content to being able to sit here and yap for however long and be halfway interesting. I think I'm better at that now than I was however many years ago. But
sure,
it's all of those dick punches have led to learning and have led to confidence on some level, even though it's not where I want it to be.
Sure. You know? Yeah, it's just I think it's growing pains for everybody, and I also think that everybody's acknowledging mental health and things like that far more than we did 5 years ago. I mean, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. It's so much more out there from like that being mentally healthy in accepting yourself, I guess I should say, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, we acknowledge now that it is a thing, whereas before it was just like, get over it. Suck it up. How many times did somebody tell you to suck it up?
There's still quite a bit of that. I mean, I think there's a large population of people that will say that we need help or need more mental health awareness and this,
but still say suck it up.
Still say suck it up.
Yeah.
They don't see a difference between the two, or they don't associate the two.
But I was one of those people, and now I'm not. So I think there are people shifting. Like, I would have told you to suck it up 10 years ago.
Right.
And now I'm like, if I think somebody...
Dude, I was in the Army. That's all I said.
Right.
Suck it up.
They trained
you
to just suck it up.
Bitching about?
Oh, you broke your leg when you jumped? Well, you're going to die if you don't get up and run.
Great example. In the Olympics a couple years ago, I think it was Simone Biles. She pulled out of the Olympics for vertigo or something, and people were giving her a hard time. Oh, you can't suck it up, and it had to do something that happens to gymnasts, where they do the tumbling and the spinning and the flipping, and it associates their vertigo. So, but nobody cared.
Right.
It was all suck it up. You're in the Olympics. You can't be a champion if you don't. And I empathized with that. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, but I didn't. In the 90s, when Scottie Pippen had a migraine for the Bulls and sat out in the finals, you know what I mean? Right. I was like, what a bitch. What a bitch. Suck it up.
I also look at that particular situation of the people that are like, suck it up. Suck it up. Like, get into the Olympics. You're sitting on the sidelines watching somebody else act like, you know, here's Simone Biles comes in and does like 15 flips, a cartwheel, a somersault, and finishes landing perfectly on her feet and throwing her arms up in the air. Do one cartwheel. Yeah. The person telling her to suck it up. Go out there and do one cartwheel. Yeah. Perfect cartwheel. You can't fall over. You can't do a fat person cartwheel like I would do, where you try really hard and you just roll.
Well, that's the thing.
Do one cartwheel. You're going to talk shit to an Olympic gymnast. Whoops.
Knock over.
Thankfully nothing, but close. Do one thing that Olympic gymnast can do, and then we'll talk about you talking shit to them.
Yeah. It's just like nobody has been in other people's shoes, nobody's been in other people's heads, and nobody knows what's going on in other people's heads. Mm-hmm. You know? Nobody's going to pull out of the Olympics just because they're like,
right.
I don't know if I feel like it.
She didn't work her entire life to get to the Olympics to go, I just don't feel like it today. That's not how it works.
But that's, in my younger days, I'd been like, shut the fuck up,
We all grew, we all learned, man. I think that at the end of this, the point I wanted to get across with that video was you have the opportunity every day to build somebody up around you. If you even sense for even a little bit that somebody's down on themselves, find something to compliment them about. Or, I mean, shit, if somebody just says I had a good hair day, I'm on cloud 9 for a little bit, and I appreciate that. Like, thank you.
Honestly, dude, no joke. My hair right now is the longest it's ever been.
It looks can I just say, it looks very Bradley Cooper in a good way.
Bradley Cooper doesn't have, I guess he does have long hair.
He does.
Honestly, I never thought it was like good hair.
No, it's good, man.
It is really good.
It's got a nice wave to it right now.
It is super thick. It is very curly. And
you do.
But I had compliments at work for the hair. And
I'm have a very thick head of hair. You're not thinning, bro.
No, I don't ever have to worry about going bald. Ever.
But seriously, I'm telling you, man, it just one little comment, you could change somebody's entire day. You know what? Can I? This is only on the being nice thing. I just want to throw this out here.
Yeah.
This was such a cool thing. I've never had anything like this happen. We had a cold snap come through the area.
It was gross.
Horribly cold. And I'm an idiot. Not necessarily the guy who goes out in shorts in the weather idiot, but the guy who always just wears a hoodie. Mm-hmm. Don't bother putting on a hat or gloves. It was cold. I had driven for a short time, stopped at the gas station to get a water, walk into the gas station, and I grabbed my water. I sat down on the counter, and I'm just like rubbing my hands. I'm like, the guy goes, "You good?" I'm like, it's just really cold out there, and I'm an idiot. I never dressed for the weather. He literally said to me, "I have gloves in my car, and I would be happy to give them to you." And I was like, "No, man, you can't do that." He's like, "They're brand new gloves. I would love to give them to you." And I was like, "Dude, I really appreciate that, but I'm sure somebody out there could use them more than me. I just have a short walk to my car, but thank you." And I just thought that was the coolest thing, dude.
Yeah.
Like, he just offered me gloves out of the blue. He was just going to hook it up. Like, what a good dude.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah, that changed my whole day. I was in a pissy mood coming into work because, I get up early. I'm pissy anyway. But I was in a pissy mood. I was late. I was behind. I knew I needed to stop and get something to drink. Like, I was just in a bad mood, but that changed my whole day. I was just like, what a cool guy. What a nice guy. Now, granted, if I had said yes and he was like, cool, sexual favor, then it would have changed the whole situation to a negative. But it didn't
blew up that inspirational story.
No, let's keep it positive here because it never got to that point. It was just a nice gesture. And I never took the gesture, so I won't know if there was a negative ending to it. And I'm good with it.
That's going to be it for the Smartman show. I don't know what we're going to do for the next episode or two, but we're going to come up with something.
I think we should watch Miami Vice.
No, we're not. I'm not.
Look at that shirt. Sorry, dude. I'm mesmerized.
Now you're thinking about bringing it back.
I am legitimately mesmerized. The colors, like the pink's cool. Then there's this like really bright blue that he's rocking, but then there's like a really pale version of the blue that he's rocking, and I don't know which one I like more. I
don't know.
Can we make that a poll?
Why don't you think about it while I leave?
I'd end it on that.
Did you want it? Okay.
I would end it on that.
It works. Okay.
I was serious about Michael Landon.